Welcome to another Carlisle Club podcast, where, as usual, I've got a very special guest on, and it's a recurring guest. I interviewed him before, and his band Far From Friends. So he's 50% of this band, and I'm very happy to have him here on the show solo. I have Altus Mouton. Welcome, Altus.
Thank you so much, my brother Carl. Great to be back, of course.
Exactly. So this time it's not in person. It's via the remote. Let's just hope our batteries don't run out. But I'm pretty sure we'll be able to keep this conversation going. How are you feeling
I'm
today?
feeling good. Feeling very happy to be speaking to you again on your amazing podcast. And how's it going with you?
I'm always doing good, but I'm always doing good in retrospect. It's one of those things. If people ask, "How are you?" and if you have to say like, "Well, sometimes I go through existential crisis. Suffer from anxiety and." And all of those things, you don't want to unload and unpack that to every single person. So I guess the best relevant answer can be, I'm doing good, because
Yeah,
you've got a place to stay, you've got food in your belly, and um, you've got so many things to be thankful for. So in retrospect, you can always answer with, it's going good.
that's why what I also think. If anybody tells me their job is hard, I always say, well, we don't work in a mine, so technically none of us have the right to complain about anything. Um, but I agree. Like, you don't always want to have somebody unburden all their problems onto you, which is something that I've been experiencing in the last while, where you can see that sometimes some people are only focused on the negative, and then you leave the evening thinking, hey, they're only kind of complained the whole night. So for me
But
personally, I try to not complain, basically. Yes.
But where is the line between, being super honest with someone and diving into the conversation to, like, when someone's asking, how are you, and just unpacking everything that you're going through versus just giving the short answer because you don't want to have that conversation, because it's quite a laborious conversation, because, it takes time to have it and you don't want to constantly have it. So where do you draw that line between honesty and just giving the short, generic answer?
I guess it's, I will quote a friend of mine that said, if you don't see people often enough, you don't hear how they are, you just need hear what they know. So I think that's a good quote. Um, I think if you see somebody often enough, then eventually the conversation will kind of naturally lead to those conversations. But it's usually in in the later of the evening. I would say to actually have those deep conversations. And I agree. I sometimes feel like I was only talking deep with somebody the whole night, and they probably leave. They're probably leaving like completely exhausted with all
And
this.
they just wanted the short generic answer, and you just
Yeah.
unpacked everything.
So that's kind of finding that balance is kind of hard, I think.
I sometimes feel that if I spend time with someone, I want it to be enjoyable. I want my interaction
Yeah.
with people to be a fun interaction, because I don't want to always come forth with problems or deep seated conversations
Yes.
from the get go, because I don't know. I feel like I'm burdening you. Like I said, I'm burdening people with that honesty the whole time. So I don't know when I'm going to see this person again. So I might as well try and
Yeah.
make this interaction as fun and lively as possible.
I kind of try and agree with you there. Like, I want people to, after a conversation with me, to feel better than feel worse. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah.
To feel, put it shortly. But
But
I want to add, I think that if you, the people that you kind of celebrate your victories. Those are the ones that you can also tell about your losses, if you know what I mean. So if somebody is not excited for something good that you've achieved, then the likelihood of them caring about the negative is far less. So, I guess it comes back to the concept of true friendship, where you want to spend time with each other, not only for the good, but for the bad as well, a balance.
I guess that's also why certain writers write under a pseudonym, under a pen name. Like for instance, they don't put their own names onto their work because they feel they
Yeah.
might be ridiculed or judged for what they're saying or what they believe in, or just with the creativity that they're exporting. They want to do it under a pseudonym. So it kind of like masks and prevents them from being able to be open to ridicule and, objective and subjective, opinions towards that.
And criticism, of course.
Yeah, it's almost like the confessional booth in a church. I mean, it's between inverted commas anonymous, but just
Yeah.
because there is some sort of sheet between you and the person, you kind of feel better to talk about whatever it is you want to talk about, because there's kind of like a little invisibility cloak in front of you now I can talk about it.
I think the same thing kind of counts for virtual artists. Now, I'm not calling out anyone in specific, but if you create an artist profile and you make music under a fake, identity where you kind of hide yourself, I think it's easier to put out stuff that you wouldn't necessarily want to be associated with. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
like you said, it's easier to escape that criticism. Uh, you could put out mediocrity, and nobody could personally, technically tie that to your own identity. Where I guess me personally, I went the opposite route, where I'm just sharing the deepest thoughts that I can and the most honest, feelings that I can, with the hopes that, I don't know, maybe one or two people actually connect and understand what I'm actually talking about.
Well, there's a sense of authenticity towards that. I mean, I like to be as authentic as possible with who I am and how I project myself. There's a way to relay who you are without having to hide anything. And then there's other people choose to be able to hide behind a computer screen or hide behind a personality that they've created just so that they can be something that they perceive themselves to be. I kind of like, I speak a lot about this, like the Fight Club, Tyler
Yeah.
Durden, for instance. That's how the narrator perceives him as to be, and he's not like that, but that's how he wants to be. But in essence, that is how he is, because that is who he is. And one of my favorite um, quotes from a movie, I don't know if you've seen I Heart Huckabees, but it's revolving, existentialism. And one of my favorite quotes from that movie is, "How am I not myself?" You know,
Oh,
like, how
nice.
am I
Yeah.
not myself? Because no matter what you do, it's something that you would do. So you're always yourself, no matter what you do. If you lie, that's something you would do. Or if you speak the truth, or if whatever you do, you are always yourself. You can never not be yourself.
It's in his nature, like the frog and the scorpion, basically.
You just, no matter what you do, you are yourself. How you portray yourself, what you do, that is who you are. It's something you would do.
I agree with that. But I do think we can all kind of change. I think we can always try and be better the next day, basically.
Yeah, but that is something that you would do. That is still you being you, be just being bettering yourself. So there's never a day where you cannot unbe who you are. If you're just taking a lazy day, that's something you would do. That's, you're
I
still
like
yourself.
that. Yeah, I like that.
So you can't escape who you are.
Speaking about movies, if we can derail a bit to
Yeah,
movies,
go for
I'd
it.
love to hear, because we briefly spoke about it in passing by, the movie The Whale. If like I think that's a movie that is rife for criticism, but also praise in its own way. Not by any means a perfect movie, but I would say a great movie.
You know
So
what?
we
Yeah,
should probably put a spoiler warning uh, for anybody that still wants to see the whale.
I think for me, it's one of it's one of the first movies in a long time where I actually felt something because I could
Yeah,
relate to a lot of the characters from, Brendan Fraser's character to his daughter to the missionary. I could relate
yeah,
to at some point to either one of those characters. I saw that movie kind of like as a Rorschach test, like what you see and how you feel at that current point of time in your life. You can actually resonate with that movie with either one of those characters, even the caretaker. And
yeah.
I feel that it invokes emotion and a thought at the same time. And from just being wanting to be alive and being, well, what are you going to do with the time you have on this planet? Do you
For
resent
sure.
yourself for what you've accomplished, or what is that common goal that you wanted to achieve for not being able to achieve those goals? Yeah, there's a lot we can dive in deep into, but I physically cried for the first time in a long time after watching that movie because I personally related to Brendan Fraser's character because I took where he came from in his personal life and how what he's gone through in Hollywood, in the Hollywood scene for his all of these years, his rise and his fall. And for him
Yeah,
to play such a vulnerable character, it was just for me an amazing casting for that specific role.
I don't think that anybody else could have technically portrayed that role as well as Brendan Fraser, for sure. His eyes just cut through it, and like it just shows exactly what he's feeling, like almost like a little boy, kind of. His eyes just shows exactly what he's feeling. And I agree, I think the casting was just fantastic. And specifically the daughter character was, for me, very standout. But I think anything can be criticized, and that is maybe something that can be criticized about the movie, is that it really kind of goes out of its way to make you feel something. You know what I mean? Even the musical score is really, really, really dramatic, and but I don't see it as a bad thing. I see it as a positive. The more cynical view could be like, this movie is trying too hard to make me feel something, but it did. It did make me feel a lot as well, and um, I think it's I think highly recommended for sure.
But also, exactly to put into our initial conversation, his camera being off and him not wanting the pizza guy to see him, he had to remain that anonymous because he felt ashamed of what he has become with his life. And, he still want to be, between inverted commas, a functional member in society and still be able to get his regular pizza and still be able to retain his job. He needed to actually mask himself from reality in order to just basically function as a normal human being and not trying to be creative and portray something that is not. He tried to be himself, and in order to be that and be accepted by the world, he had to be anonymous.
And I agree, like the pizza man little divergence story there that they followed was cool, in the sense that when he does actually see him, he is disgusted. So his fear is founded in reality. I mean, it is proven that his fears were is true. So when that person did see him, he was disgusted. So um, it's kind of a double thing, where you would expect the easy way out is for the guy to not judge him and to show that, okay, no, all humans are equally good, because we've seen the characters already not judge him and accept him and whatever. But I like that. I did like that. I think just my takeaway criticism of the movie is just maybe one or two too many plot lines, or angles that they went for. So when I read about it, is the core message is empathy. So I did get that from the movie. We have to empathize, but I maybe it could have gotten a little bit lost between all of the drama that is happening. There's abandonment issue. There's like so many different touching points that they tried to tackle at once, and maybe some of it flew under the radar. So that's my only real criticism. I was still giving a 9 out of 10 solidly, but probably mostly because of Brendan. But I'm glad that we both enjoyed the movie. The last 5 minutes is absolutely super intense. So if anything, I would recommend it just for the last 5 minutes, if anything.
But, one thing that struck me is, and it's something that we all avoid kind of in the back of our heads, but it's so prominent from the get-go, is dealing with his mortality at the same time. He knows, he's dealing with some of his bad habits, some of his flaws that he can't kick and he can't work on. He should just eat healthy or just try and be able to walk and be able to function. But, his habits is, causing him to lose time on this planet. And we all, every single human being, we are going to die, no matter what we do. And we all have got our things. And what do we do to work on our bad habits? Because everybody has got things that we don't like about ourselves. Everybody has that. And what do we do to improve it, or to make sure that it's something we can better on, or to try and to make our misfortune our fortune? And mortality is something that pops up very regularly in my thought process nowadays, because I live on this planet. I've got a limited time, and I talk about it the whole time, but what do I do with my time? What do I do to make my time on this planet enjoyable for me or with the people around me? Is it really necessary to make something with your life, or just live a humble life, or what do you do to stay alive?
I'd like to touch on the subject of, I guess, death in general, because that's something that I also constantly think about. But I've recently, like, if we want to talk a little bit about philosophy, like one of the recent books that I've read and that I've been really obsessed about is Marcus Aurelius' Meditations, which he wrote for himself, and he's constantly also talking about death the whole time. And I'm glad that you kind of also share this view, because I've spoken to other people and told them that you should technically always be thinking that this is your last hour, for example, or your last day. And to some people, it seems jarring or terrifying, or just a very negative way of looking at life. But I don't see it as that. Like, some quote that I heard is, happy is the man that has the hour of death always before his eyes. And I do agree with that. It'll kind of inspire you to not take everything for granted, or in moments of frenzy to kind of take a step back and think, is this overreaction kind of worth it? Considering that, everyone that has lived has died, and everyone that is living will die. So we're all going to be part of the same path. We will all find this. We will all walk the same path. I think people should think about their mortality constantly, which, again, I've been told is not necessarily healthy or whatever, but I think it's the best way, the only way to live life is to live this day as if it's your last.
I mean, we all live in this live fast, die young culture where we think like, okay, cool, live like there's no tomorrow. But I think there is a lot of value into thinking long term, you know, for instance, taking care of your body so I can live longer. I only have this one
Yeah,
vehicle, you know, taking care of this vehicle, I might be able to enjoy the things that I enjoy for a lot longer versus, yeah, I'm just gonna go demolish myself right now because tomorrow doesn't exist, you know, where there is no middle ground between that. And neither one of those options are right or wrong. But I think that with everything, and I think that is basically the main purpose to my life is trying to find balance. Balance is the one thing that I think will derive your purpose. My balance between mental and physical health, my balance between what I do and what the outcome is, the choices that I make, you know, and finding that balance between how I live my life to what I want to accomplish. I think everybody has got their own little balance and their own
yeah.
demons to fight in order to keep pushing.
Uh, Something that I do agree that balance will aid in the sense of purpose, but something that I've asked other people is, can you find purpose in cooking a meal? Or can you find purpose in just cleaning up your room or cutting the grass, mundane tasks? So, like, that's, I think, that's the next step in contentment. If you could technically be true, if you could cut the grass, for example, and feel as if your life on this earth had some sense of purpose, that's very good. But in like I said, in today's society, I do think it is a bit overlooked. It seems almost crazy to suggest this idea of mundanity should be able to provide purpose. Uh, you know, we all have to be great, and we all have to leave a legacy, or something like that, in order to be truly happy. This is the idea that's being pushed. But can we be truly happy alone, or find purpose in just looking at the birds eating? These are the things that I think about a lot. Can we do nothing and still feel as if it's worth it? And I do think it's got to do with a lot with mindfulness. It's something that I've been kind of struggling with, or kind of trying to better in myself. The more that we are conscious and present, the more I think we will find enjoyment and beauty in the smaller things in life, and through that we will find contentment. This is what I think. It's obviously not easy, um but every day should be seen as a win. Probably, I think, if you make it to tomorrow, then tomorrow should be great.
I think there can be purpose in mediocrity, and that all boils down to purpose. And that purpose is translated via your own perspective. And speaking as myself personally, I find a lot of value in my mediocrity and my mundane life. Cleaning to
Great.
me is a time where I can have my personal therapy, and that's my meditation, having like a clean environment to move around in, where I can, go to the kitchen and I know things are clean, or I go chill on my bed and I know the bed is at least made, or go work at my workstation and I know the environment there is clean. And the act of cleaning these things is meditation for me, because I know when I go use it, it will be a breeze. And when I come home after not being home for, let's say, 3 or 4 days or a month or whatever, I know, wow, I'm welcomed by my home. And with every single task that I do, I basically, instead of driving to the shops or where I need to be, I either take my bicycle or I walk now, because
Definitely.
for me, it's thinking and being able to see what's around me and enjoy that moment, because otherwise I'm going to spend 10 minutes and I'm back at my home, and ex- that whole entire exercise is done. But, you know, Are we telling the person who lives on a farm in the middle of nowhere, who works on his farm, who does what he needs to do? And I've had this chat to another friend of mine before, where are you trying to say his life doesn't have purpose, because he enjoys what he does? Even someone who works at a car wash, if that guy enjoys washing cars, he finds it, exhilarating to do so. Who are we to say that that person is not leaving a legacy behind, that his life doesn't have purpose?
Agreed. Like, but what is, yeah, purpose is temporary when we consider the grander scheme of things. Like a doctor saving 50 people, he probably feels like he has a lot of purpose, but at the end of the day, those 50 people are still going to die. So if a doctor saved 50 people 100 years ago, to us that still seems insignificant, and like it's basically, like you said, it's personal. It's very personal. We cannot say that that person on a farm that grows crops, and has a quote unquote, more natural orientated life, that he has less purpose somehow than somebody that's, I don't know, a celebrity online or something.
There's a
um
there's an old philosophy thought experiment that I recently read about. So let's say you've been kidnapped, and you wake up in a room somewhere, and there is a very famous violinist, or let's say Beethoven, is right next to you on a
yeah.
bed, and you are hooked up to him with IV, with your blood transfusion towards Beethoven, a very famous human being, you know,
Yeah.
and your blood type is the only blood type that will keep this person alive. But for 9 months, you have to lie down there and you have to keep this person alive. Will you unhook yourself because you think, wow, this is a very important person, or are you going to take your own life into consideration? You don't know what you're going to do in the next 9 months, or you're just going to unhook it and that person dies and you're going to go on with your life?
I guess depends on your level of martyrdom. I guess it depends on your level of empathy for the next human being, if you value their lives more than your own. Um, but it is an interesting thought experiment. I don't know if it has a definite answer. Like, I mean, it's for each person to decide. I don't think I would, if I could put it
No,
to
I
you that way.
understand, but that's what I like about that experiment is, what do we value? I mean, how do we monetize purpose? It's something you can't
Yeah,
monetize. The same with art. If I draw a little stick figure, if you if you look at a lot of famous artists, someone can just duct tape a banana to a wall, and that's considered as revolutionary. But how do I monetize this violinist? I don't know. Just because Beethoven is a famous musician doesn't make him a good person. I don't know that, you
yeah,
know?
that's true. That's
Yeah,
very
I
true.
don't know if that's a good person or not. So we can't monetize other people's purpose or general life purpose, because we're all trying to figure out what it is, because there is no handbook towards life. I mean, if I have to quote one of my favorite philosophers, Lucius Seneca, he said, sometimes even to live is an act of courage. And if I
Amazing.
have if I have to take my own life into consideration, I want to live. I want to keep going.
It's so funny that you're bringing up Lucius Seneca, because I've literally got his book next to me right now as I'm sitting here. Um, it's I I I wouldn't consider myself necessarily a Stoic, but especially Marcus Aurelius and Lucius Seneca has some great insights to group. I love it.
But I mean, I just look at some of my favorite celebrities and people I enjoyed. I enjoyed what they've done with their lives, and they came to a point where they took their lives. And I'm thinking to
Yeah,
myself, wow. This person had everything. This person every left their legacy, and that was still enough. Wasn't enough for that person. That person didn't make it or didn't want to make it. So, what does that say about my life? You know, what, what am I supposed to do? People who have everything that they want, they don't want it anymore. So that's why I'm saying, like, to live is an act of courage, and I
Yeah,
need to look after myself before I can look after other people. But I think in today's age, I find it really hard to just be alive because you're so open to what the world's perspective is about purpose and the monetization of it. It's easy to feel insecure and not accomplished.
definitely.
And what am I doing with my life then?
I don't know if everybody feels that way. So I've met many people that are just purely content on who they are. Some people, probably like me and yourself, have this deep need in order to, I don't know, kind of leave something after our existence to to prove that we were here or something like that. Um, no, but we have to determine our own paths.
But like that old saying is, you need to look after yourself before you can look after other people. But is there a need to look after other people, or do I just need? Am I fine with just doing what I need to do, staying in my lane? Why do I feel the need to leave something behind? Why do I feel the need to be remembered or to leave a
Ah,
legacy? Why is that so important?
that's such a good question. That's something that I also think about, obviously, all the time. Why is it so important to uh, escape death, if you will? But like, the concept of the three deaths. The first death is when we die, and then the second death is when the last person says your name, and the third death is when the last person looks at a photo of you without even saying your name. And I think we both try to at least keep our lives as far as we can in terms of the third death, in terms of putting things online that can be enjoyed for let's say the internet exists for 100 more years. Then we always have something that we've, like, breadcrumbs that we've left here, that people can go back and remember us by the day that we aren't here. So I don't know. I think it's good. I think it's noble or whatever. But I think we both realize that it's futile. Within like within 50 years, none of our lives would have mattered. To, like, if you consider how many people do you know that lived 500 years ago, it's
Yeah,
maybe 10 or 20 people that you can
yeah,
even name that lived 500 years ago. So never mind 2,000 years ago, or it's so that's something. I can't say the exact reason why we feel this need. I That's something that I can't figure out myself. Why do we feel this need to leave something behind? But I would say it's better than just living a life and knowing that our existence will be forgotten probably within 6 months after our existence. So I don't know. Well, I guess
I'm
we
like
try to be
I like
significant
to
in that
think
way.
about that is, yeah, how many people can we mention that lived 100 years ago? I mean, how many people of your own family can you
Yeah,
name
exactly.
that lived 100 years ago?
Not
That's
even, like,
scary.
that is scary. I realized, like, the other day on this topic, I've met my great grandmother. My grandmother's mother. I met her maybe once or twice in my life, but I don't know her name. You know what I mean? And I don't know if that makes
Yeah,
me a bad person. But I met her when she was, like, whatever, 200 years old, 90 years old, when I
yeah.
was very small. And I don't know her name for the life of me. So if I can't remember my great grandmother, or her legacy, I don't keep that alive, if you will, how can I expect that from anyone else?
I just think we're in such a beautiful age for archiving and recording and creating and getting heard that my reason for, doing what I'm doing right now and doing all kinds of random creative things are,
Mm,
I want people in my own immediate family to actually, wow, that's my great great uncle, or
for sure.
and be able to remember it within my family, because I feel we're in that age. And I don't think it's an obligation to do what I'm doing right
Um,
now, but I do feel from my side is if you can make an impact on just one person in your close vicinity of friends, and that legacy can be, you know, portrayed for years and years to come, and that can be left for generations, and that small little insignificant thing to you can mean the world to someone
for
else.
sure.
I'm going to try and do that. Like I say, I don't feel it's obligation, but I kind of like live in the age where even if I'm just walking down the road and I'm making a TikTok about it, someone can see it's like, hey, well, yes, this guy really enjoyed his walks or riding on his bicycle, and that's just some little story. And I think for me, the most beautiful thing that we have that right now is the act of being able to record stories
Yeah,
and tell stories, and that those beautiful stories that we only hear about in ancient books can now be recorded and be told for years and years to come. And I love that.
I agree. I agree that, but we like one person resonating with this stuff is enough. We in today's age, we cannot expect, a lot of people, but like you said, if we can have one or two, uh, that should be good enough as a bit of a remembrance. No matter how insignificant. Like I was listening the album Ars Poetica by Shu. I don't know if you know this album.
Yeah, I know this album. I even helped you to track this album down in
Oh
lockdown,
yes,
remember?
I was struggling to find it. It's it was before it was uploaded to Spotify. But anyway, I was listening this album again, and it's from 2006. Um, and they had two monthly listeners, right? Which makes sense because it's a random album from 2006. And then I realized I'm probably not probably, statistically, the only person really listening this music in 2023 or even acknowledging its existence, which made me happy as the end user. So, I mean, if you talk about Werner Olgers and Peach from Blitzen, they probably don't think about Shu ever. You know what I mean? Or they don't think that there is, I don't know, 5 people in South Africa that still listen to this album that's almost, so it's like 15 years or 16 years old. Um, so they've achieved their goal without even trying it. That legacy resonated enough with me, at least, that that art has more value to me probably than the artist itself that created it. So it's that ripple effect. I think that's kind of my point. What's what we're getting at is it might seem insignificant in the moment, but who knows, within 10 years, the back catalog or whatever that we've created can still be enjoyed and still resonate with that one or two people down the road. And that should be worth it.
I think the fact that that artist decided to upload it to Spotify, and even though it gets 1 or 2 or 5 listens a month, the fact that
Yeah,
that artist uploaded it for the world to enjoy already means a lot for them to know, like, listen, I'm going to give this to the world, and I know it's there for anyone to enjoy. And it's weird that you say that, because
true.
I went through the same tangent recently. I saw one of my favorite bands that I saw as a teenager. And what I loved about growing up in Tableview was there was a vibrant music scene here. I mean,
Mm.
emo and alternative and rock was alive here, and it was beautiful. There was constant gigs for under 18s, it was beautiful. I mean, kids under 18 can go watch gigs and in a safe environment. And there was a band called Tonight We Die, and I really love their stage performance, in the sense of these guys, their name basically said it all, because they basically gave everything, every single live performance that they did. And I found them on Spotify, and I also saw, like, what? I'm probably like the only listener on this account right now.
That should be
But
great, eh?
but the fact that they thought, you know what, I'm gonna put this on Spotify. We've released this album many moons ago, but perhaps there are some people who still want to enjoy it. And there are. I mean, I'm enjoying it right now. The fact that you're enjoying Chu right now, and we can talk about these bands right now.
Yeah,
The fact is that art isn't lost. It's not lost. It's there for anyone's enjoyment.
exactly. Like the debut ISO album, it still holds up. Um, that's cool.
To this day.
Shout out to Tonight We Die. Uh,
Shout out to Shu, shout out to Tonight We Die, and
I
Isocronus,
I like that. I like that name. It's very emo name. So it's probably before their time, but that was a good time to be in the music scene. I would agree. If I would say probably even younger kids, kids that are 20 years old now, for example, they could probably, if we say, 2008 to 2010 was really happening, even they could probably look back and be like, yeah, for sure. Like we had the music scene, definitely.
But everything gets recycled now. You see now the youth, I know how my parents feel when I started wearing 80s clothes, like, oh, you guys don't know anything about 80s. That's our shit, And, seeing kids walking around reviving the 90s, because I think there is a reborn curiosity in what is lost. And I feel like that's why I say in today's age, being able to record and archive it, making it easily accessible, it's easier for new generations to appreciate old pop culture and any culture that is lost, and be able to give it a new fresh twist and a new breath air. You're guilty of this too. You've been breathing life into a genre and a pop culture that is slowly but surely dying, but getting momentum again. And there's new twists and turns to
Yeah.
old pop cultures that's revised into something brand new and fresh. I love that.
We've got the technology at least on our side now. That helps.
Exactly.
But the one thing that I can say about the scene, in terms of, like, I do pay quite a lot of attention, obviously, to the South African music scene. And I try to find as many underground artists or up-and-coming artists as I can and show their support, because, that's what I would like. But one thing that I've kind of noticed, well, first of all, we live in the digital age where, for example, like we said, Shu back in the day, when they recorded their album, they weren't looking at stats. You know what I mean? They weren't looking at statistics. They weren't necessarily getting any online feedback, because they weren't really online. It was all in person.
You had to buy their CDs at a show.
Yeah,
That's the only place you can buy their CDs or get to know them.
You had to walk up to them and say, "I love your sound," and then they'd be like, "Oh, that's so cool," And I'm sure that still happens. But if I were, for example, a young person, which I am not anymore, but if I was entering the music scene as a bright-eyed 20-year-old artist, I think it would be quite demoralizing very fast, because all your stuff is immediately put online, and it's you immediately see that feedback. You're immediately seeing the amounts of stats and the plays, which could determine your own value of the music, which is another topic. But I think it's much harder for the scene to develop in the way that it has. Another thing is also, back in the day, you wouldn't be able to call yourself a musical artist if you have two songs. Think about that. Like if you were
Yeah.
a new band and you have two songs, that's not enough. You had to have at
Yeah,
least
because you had to
30
go to a
minutes.
recording studio
Well,
and you
before
had to
that,
book your time.
no, before that, you had to first play the gigs. You know what I mean? That's how I don't know. That's how I felt the scene was. Like you would not be, nobody was like, I don't know. If, I wouldn't use the word allowed, but it was looked down upon if you recorded an album without playing any live shows. Like you had to gig for, I don't know, a year or 2 years before you were kind of worthy of a band to even record. Again, back in those days, it was really expensive. You had to go to the recording studio. We didn't have the
Exactly, yeah.
technology that we have now. Again, we had to compromise in that sense. But it gave you
You had to make
time.
money. You had to make enough money to be able to record and you need to build a repertoire up to make that
Yeah,
recording time, as valuable as possible. Being able to like, listen, we've got an hour. Let's see if what we can pump out in that hour. You're not going to go to a recording studio for just one song. No recording studio would even allow that. And now we all got recording studios in our living rooms.
exactly. Which it
You
adds
all,
more
and
competition, but I don't know. It's I can't really criticize it. I
But
just
also, if you were on the radio, you've made it, and now anyone
yes,
can be heard anywhere, and that kind of like, where do you even start? Because what was we only had what were accessible to us, what played on the radio and on TV. We don't have what we have today. At the click of our fingers, we can go right around the world and go here and see whatever we want to. So we were only had the TV and the radio that told us this is what's happening right now. We couldn't go on a Spotify radio search and go search different artists from all around the world. We just had what was given to us, 5FM playlist, the Tux FM, and all of those type of things. That's why we grew up, and we all know these same things
yeah,
because I rushed to school the next morning like, did you watch that episode last night on this thing? Because we all watched that because that's the only thing that we had accessible. Or
that's
did
true.
you listen to that thing on the radio yesterday? Like, yeah, we all listened to that because it's the only thing we had accessible. Now that it's so widely spread, where do you even start?
I agree. I really agree. Like even for myself, when I put out when we put out a new song, for example, immediately I think, okay, there were 10,000 other songs uploaded today to Spotify. So like the idea of it even shining through all this kind of mud, if you will, or haze of other artists, it seems almost impossible. It's crazy.
But
Um,
that brings me back to the point where, making that impact, you need to be realistic with regards to what you want to achieve in life. If I put something out right now, do I do it with the intent to become like instantly famous, or do I do it with the intent to be like, what, this is just me, I'm putting it out there, take it as it is?
I guess setting a goal with creating any art from the start is very important. Like, yeah, if your goal is to play stadium shows, then your journey is going to be much longer. You know what I mean?
Mm.
In order to
I just
build
feel
up to
like
that level, yeah.
I just feel like the courage to be able to make that art in the first place and to make it public is, that is courageous, as life is courageous. That is courageous to be able to take that weird part of you that you think that no one will like, and you make it public, whether it's a painting or digital art or music or whatever. I just think if you're able to make that public and open yourself up to that vulnerability, that to me is probably like one of the most beautiful things that anyone can do.
Agreed. And I think that's why people like to create stage personalities. You know what I mean? They make a stage persona so that when they don't fully have to tie their own personality to the music. But it's something that I've been considering for quite a while now. Is like we spoke about this briefly. Is the value of specifically now, if we talk about music, the value of music is is such a it's such a vast topic. Like, how do you determine musical value. You know what I mean? How is one song
Yeah.
more valuable than the next song? Is it that do you measure it by streams? I guess that's one way to measure it. Um, but in essence, we can all access music for free. So it doesn't have any value. You know, it's kind of like an X in an equation where you have to determine your own value in a song. It's
Yeah.
crazy. Like um, I'll say this with all honesty. Like I've seen people put out music and then love it, and then I think you're overvaluing your own song. This is not a hit. So why why are you so intent on pushing this thing? Can't you see that shouldn't have that much value? And I know what I sound like. I'm very cynical and critical of that.
Yes, you are.
Then I think, okay, you're blinded by your own. You know, you put in all this time into creating this song, so thus it should have value. You know what I mean? Um, it's crazy. It's a very tricky topic, and I don't think I'll ever find the exact answer. But like one thing is, remember back in the day when you bought a CD, like I remember distinctly, I had two CDs that I had to choose from, and they both had 10 songs, and I think one was like Korn, uh, Follow the Leader, or one of those, one of the Korn albums, and another one was, I don't know, something else. But they both had the same amount of songs on them, but back in the day, CDs would have different prices. I don't know if you remember that.
Mm.
Like,
Well, you know, Mr. CD collection over here. You
I
know,
know,
I
yeah,
know.
you probably know. And like, even there is a monetary value tied to that album. Like, let's say one CD is selling for 100 rand and one CD is selling for 200 rand. The same amount of, with 80 minutes on it, or okay, let's say 40 minutes, 40 minutes on it. Like, why is the one album worth double? It makes no sense. Like, it probably made sense back then, but in today's society, like, music should have no intrinsic value compared to the next song.
It's like, you know, for instance, one of my favorite stories is, and I remember this headline like it was yesterday, and it was probably one of my favorite music articles to this day. And I used to go through Blunt magazines and, you know, Zigzag
Zigzag,
magazines,
yeah.
and sometimes I've got like cool little music articles in there. And I remember I once bought a Rolling Stone. I didn't always buy Rolling Stone, but this one article caught my attention where it says, band sells out show in 2 minutes and never had a number one hit.
Wow.
And I'm thinking to myself, how the hell did this band sell out a whole entire stadium in 2 minutes and they never ever had a number one hit? Do you know who that band was?
No, who was this?
Depeche Mode.
Oh, wow.
Depeche Mode has never had a number one hit
Yeah.
ever.
And yet they're
But
iconic.
it's all about the timing. It's about the timing that they released their music. For instance, when they released one of their albums, "Enjoy the Silence" came out, Thriller was number one. So, oh shit, timing. You know, it was all just timing. That just never had a number one hit on the Billboard.
Yeah.
But does that make Depeche Mode a bad band because I never had a number one hit?
No, exactly. Not the never.
The fact that you're talking about CDs, I remember seeing like a Britney Spears CD costing like 200 Rand back in the day.
Yeah, which was
And
a lot.
Beethoven, no, and then and it was like a double album, whatever. And then there was a Beethoven in the, you know, the discount bin for like 50 Rand.
Yeah,
Does it
exactly.
make
That's so fuck. That's such a good example. Like,
and
obviously,
does that make
yeah,
Beethoven less of a musician and the impact that he left on the world? You know, it's how do you put the monetary value on that? And for me, with the CDs, exactly like you said, like I would sometimes look at a CD as like, wow, I paid for this CD around $100 when I first got this CD.
yeah,
And years later, I look at that same CD and it's in the discount bin. It's all
Exactly.
about timing and what's popular and what is monetary value to music. And I'm gonna call you out now, specifically you,
Oh no.
Altus.
Oh no.
Don't you think the artist, when you, or you don't even have to call yourself an artist, the fact that you're trying to make something with the skill that you have and the abilities that you have and the technology that you have, and you try to create something, you can't put monetary value on that. And for me, it might mean the world, and I want to push it as far as I can because it's something I made. It means something to me.
Yes.
But now, because the world standards, oh no, that's not what you did. It wasn't good. It's not Picasso level, or that's not, Madonna or whatever level type music that you're making right now. But to me, I think it's a very good accomplishment for what I've done. So who are you to judge that person for making something that he did something and he's very proud of it, to say whatever you're doing right now and you're trying to push something, that's not good. Who are you to say someone that whatever they make is not good?
that's that's a that I'm the critic you despise. That is the that is who I am. I
Yeah.
guess. Um, my stance about music specifically. I do think that everything can be criticized. Food can be criticized. Music can be criticized. Obviously, movies can be criticized. Writing can be criticized. Everything can be criticized. It doesn't mean that it's necessarily bad, but nothing can be perfect. There's always something that could be better. So I'm not saying necessarily that their art is not uh, valuable. It's
But there is
just
perfection in
it's just
imperfection.
that sometimes there are clear things that you can criticize, and I hope that the person can also, like, if I give them the criticism, that they can go, oh, for sure, you know what, I didn't think about it that way, or I didn't even hear that. You're right. And it's not to say I'm right or they're wrong. It's more that criticism can be positive and negative. It should be all positive. That's why I guess it's constructive criticism. You know,
You are aware of outsider music, right?
outside of music.
Yes, outsider music. So
I am very
it's
familiar with outside of music. Yes.
all right. So with outsider music, people just creating for the sake of creating, not knowing what they're creating, is either musically and theoretically, some of that is horrible, absolutely
That's true.
horrendous. If you
Yeah.
have to take it into anything theoretically or musically, or you know, with any standard that is there. But the fact that that little piece of existence of that art is there and someone took the time to make it,
Yeah.
and the fact that that is a timestamp on this planet of something that was created from that, you cannot take away or give it any criticism, because it is something that is done and it's done from there. Even the person standing on the side of the road begging for 2 rands and they drew on a piece of cardboard. You can't say that's good or bad. I mean, you can put that thing, in the Louvre, and someone would think that's a masterpiece. So within outside of music and outside of art,
Yeah.
I feel there's a lot of monetary value to the person that made it, and I think it brings me back to empathy
Yeah.
and resonating with the artist.
For
Being like,
sure.
why did they create it? How did they create it? What's the thought process around why they've created it? For instance, to go like in a personal example, I once sent you a song where I basically played 2 chords.
Well, I remember.
Yes, I once sent you a song that I played 2 chords, but I played that because I didn't know what to play or how to play or how to do anything that I wanted to do, but I felt a certain thing that I wanted to feel that day, and I
Yes.
made it with the tools that I had available, with what I felt and what I needed and what I listened to. And to me, that meant the world. You've got people in all kinds of outsider music. To
Yeah.
them, they make that because they feel like what is in my head, I'm making it a physical object, and there it is. It's no longer going to die with us. And that, I think that is the beauty behind it, because now I'm giving something life that has no mortality.
Exactly. That's I think that's the core of it, man. It is exactly that. It's exactly that. But speaking about value of music and mortality, uh, and the reason why we're doing this, I think it if we're talking about the value of, let's say, specifically music now, the question is, after you die, right, does your
Yeah.
music inevitably and intrinsically then gain more value? And I think the answer is clear cut yes, it has to. So, for example, if you look at Juice WRLD, he was a big artist, then he died, and then his streams went up like, I don't know, something ridiculous, like 17,000% or something absolutely absurd. So, does his music then have more value after his passing? Personally, I do think so. So, uh, if anything, our death should add more value to our art, just like
Because the
Van
art
Gogh.
doesn't change.
Yeah, the art
Yeah,
doesn't
exactly.
change.
I just wanted to say Van Gogh. I mean, the art when he was alive was still the same art, but when he
Exactly.
died, all of a sudden, that art was something different. The same with Elvis Presley, Michael Jackson, all of these people. You know, when they die, they gain record amount of streams and sales and value to what they've done, and they just took something from their heads and made it a tangible thing,
Yeah.
and that thing that they made doesn't have a mortality. And that's what I think about outside of art and outside of music, or just anyone just creating anything. Your child making a macaroni piece of art and you stick it against your fridge, that is something that was stuck in your child's head, and now it's there and you can remember it. And for years to come. I don't know how long that will survive, but it's something that technically doesn't have a mortality. Then it's a tangible thing to a thought that if it stayed a thought, then that idea had a mortality and it will die with you. But the fact
Yes.
that it's been created, that thing no longer is alive. It's a tangible thing.
It's in the cloud.
It's in the 3D universe now, or in the 2D universe. It's no longer just I can talk to you about, hey Altus, I'm gonna buy shoes tomorrow. But the fact if I buy the shoes or not, that it's still the idea. If I die tomorrow, that I've never bought those shoes. But the fact that
Yeah,
when I do buy them, like, oh wow, that it actually happened.
I agree. But just talking about the outsider music and getting back to your point there, there's this band called Your Arms Are My Cocoon. I don't know if you've heard of them, very underground fifth wave emo kind of stuff. But it's so when you listen to Your Arms Are Like Cocoon, it sounds like absolute garbage. It really does. Like the way that it's produced or recorded, it sounds like the guy is standing in another room screaming into a toaster. Like it's really, really bad. But then when I listen to it's bad in the sense by all normal standards of musicality. It's bad. But I love it so much because of the rawness, because it's so badly recorded, you love it more. It's so weird. And then when I play that band to other people and their expression on their face, that when it's like they ate a lemon, they're like, what are we listening to? I hate this.
Yeah.
Then I get this joy in my heart. Then I'm like, yeah, you don't get it. It's supposed to sound like shit. That's what makes it cool. Like
Yeah.
so. That's a very good point that you made. That the badness, quote unquote, of the music is what makes it special in that specific case. Um,
Yeah. Tommy Wiseau, The Room. I mean,
Express,
horrible movie.
great example. Cult classic. Um,
Exactly. But the fact that he wanted to make this movie and he made this movie with whatever he had to his whatever he had accessible, and it's there now. And the fact that it's raw and uncut emotion,
yeah,
that's what makes it beautiful. and I can't remember, um, but it's a story of this man who bought his children instruments,
Oh,
and
I know this exact. I know what you're talking about. It's
he made a live show where all of these kids played these instruments for the first time in front of people, and they don't know how to play these instruments at all. But there was so much beauty in that because it's four individuals playing instruments that they've never played before in
yeah,
front of people, and that was such a amazing performance to witness. But it sounded like shit, but it's just four people just jamming out, not caring, just raw emotion, blaring out these instruments,
yeah.
how they feel, and resonating with each other. And that itself is art.
Like, I will take it a step further. I know exactly what you're talking about. It's called the Shags, by the way, for if anybody's
Yes, yes. I think you introduced me to them.
if
I
anybody's
think you
still
introduced me.
listening at this point, check out the Shags. It's like you said, it's three girls in the band that cannot play the instruments. Um, and but now it's become first of all, it's Kurt Cobain's favorite band. That's why they kind of became famous long after their time, where Kurt Cobain is like, this is my favorite band. But like there is a performance of another band covering the Shags, and
Wow.
if you look, yeah, if you look at the intricacy that goes into being able to mimic that performance. It's
Yeah,
insane. They have to
yeah.
specifically detune their instruments very, very specifically because obviously the original artist didn't know how to tune their instruments. So they have to use very, very specific, messed up tunings for the guitar. The rhythms are so obscure because, again, the drummer doesn't know how to drum. So, in order to replicate that awful sound, it took them, I think, 10 years to be able to
Yeah,
actually
it's amazing
replicate that
talent to
sound.
specifically do that. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's that almost transcends art. It's so bad that in order to replicate that badness, you have to be a very, very good musician in order to to pull that off.
It's like James Franco recreating the room, you know.
Exactly, perfect example. You have to be that good of an actor in order to portray that
But
badness. Yeah,
Kurt Cobain had a love for outsider art. I mean, he
yeah,
also had a big love for Daniel Johnson. And Daniel
exactly.
Johnson is probably like one of the most renowned outsider artists of his generation. And
Yeah,
they did everything from art to music to everything. And he was such a savant, and everything that guy did was just raw emotion for the act of just creating what he had accessible in his mind, trying to portray what's going on in his mind versus visual and musical art. And Kurt Cobain had a love for Daniel Johnson too, and all of this outsider. I think he saw the beauty in making an idea a tangible thing, and I'm the same. I
yeah,
do the same in my own personal life. I've got archives and archives of stupid things that I do, from writing to making music to making videos, and I just do it for the sake of doing it. And I see something that was in my head, and I enjoy the fact to be able to see something that was stuck in my head and it's now there. I mean, you've seen it as well from
in
a coffee brand to whatever it is. I love that. And I think people shouldn't be discouraged by what the standards are of the world with regards to art and creation, and just be able to
true.
do it in between all of the Spotify's and the streaming platforms and the ridicule of the planet. I think we should just all do whatever we want to do and create what we want to create, regardless of what people think.
And also improve, hopefully. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
we can uh, maybe one day then reach that standard of the world. I don't know, but
I'm sure if you continuously do something for a very long time, the 10
you
hours
will.
thing, if you constantly do something
Yeah,
that you enjoy, you are going to get better at it.
exactly. I agree. So, you know, with that, I want to say, like, yeah, good luck to anybody that is recording music and is creating art because it ain't easy. It's the creation of it is almost the easiest part, I think. It's like once you have it, then what? You know, what am I gonna do with this? Am I gonna keep it in my pocket and never tell anybody about it? Then what was the point? You know, that's how I see it. Um, so it's the easiest part is almost creating it. Then the hard part comes like how do how do I feel proud about this, or how do I find value again in this art that I've created? How do I justify the time that I've spent creating this piece of media? And again, the only way is to then put it out into the world and, well, either hope for the best or pursue it with everything you've got. So, or somewhere in between. It's tricky.
Altus, I've come to that part of the show where
Thanks
I'm
so
going to wrap
much,
things up. And I'm going to ask you a question that I always ask and leave people with. If you have to say something to absolutely anyone out there in the world, if you could leave a stamp on this planet with anything, what would you say right now?
I would say that do not underestimate your own ability to influence other people, whether it be positive, negative, life changing, anything in between. We all have the ability to either make somebody's day better or either make somebody feel more valued. Um, so I hope we all keep that in mind, that we are not just blimps on the radar. We are part of this big ecosystem. So do your part and tell it to the next person, I think. Yeah.
Altus, I would like to thank you for coming on my show.
Much
It's been a
appreciated,
really
Kyle.
big pleasure to have you, Jan. And you can check out Altus. He's in a band called Far From Friends, a band that transcends genre, I feel, and it's probably like one of the most slept on bands in South Africa today. I'm a big fanboy, as you can tell. And yeah, Altus, if you have anything else to plug it in. And I would just like to tell you, be happy and be inspired.
Thanks so much, Kyle, and keep on rocking in the free world.
Thanks, man.
Have a good one. All right. Cheers, Kyle.